All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. Joined by the Wood Brothers Racing team of co-owners Eddie Wood and Len Wood, and John will be joining us shortly here, hopefully. But obviously, a big win on Saturday night, the 100th win for Wood Brothers Racing in the Cup Series, as Harrison Burton took the Coke Zero Sugar 400 at Daytona. And Eddie, I'll just start it off real quick. We were texting yesterday morning. And you told me at that time you had 315 texts just at 10 o'clock, just that quickly after the race. What are you up to now, and how's that going?
Well, I'm think I'm on about 177 yet to go. I've heard from people that I hadn't heard from since I was in high school, and I'm going to answer every one of them, which takes me a week. But yeah, I'm catching up on it. I spent all day yesterday doing it. Um, Most of the time, when you send somebody a text after they send you one, of course, they may answer it. Well, then you get in a conversation, and so it takes a little while. But it's really, really a cool thing to be hearing from that many people.
Great. Well, let's kick it off with questions here. We got a long line here, and I want to start with Zach Sterniolo. So, Zach, why don't you kick us off?
Thanks, Dan. Eddie, having a driver like Harrison, being that he comes from a family of racers himself, how has he worked with this team? Obviously, I know the decision that this year is going to be the end of the road there with that partnership. But what has it been like having a driver with a family-owned team that comes from a family of racers himself?
I think that's one thing that makes it easy. Um, he grew up around his dad and his uncle racing, and his cousins race. You grow up in a racing family. It's easier to just do things because they understand. Like if Lynn or I or John, somebody's talking to Harrison about something, it's like, you know what I mean. It's your family's the same as ours. You grew up with racing being the only topic that was ever talked about. At lunch or dinner or in the car, wherever you were, it was about racing, and I'm sure that's the way he grew up, because there's so many. I know when Kyle Petty drove for us, we spent about the first day. We were loaded up to go to Daytona and test. This was in February. I mean January, and we just got to talking about, well, what do they do at your dinner table? Like, do y'all talk? What do you eat for lunch? Just, it's so many things was the same, and there's no different with Harrison.
Last one I have is just what sort of influence have you seen Jeff have on Harrison as a young man trying to find his way in the sport?
Um, Jeff goes about it. Jeff, being in the TV side of it, a lot of times he's not where he can come around the car early. He's doing his day job, but he always comes by, and Jeff always watches the races from up top. Whether he's doing TV or whatever, he's never around the pit box during the race. He's always on top, a spotter stand or somewhere like that. But I think he gives Harrison enough room. As a dad, I mean, my son raced too. You can't get in too deep with it. You just got to kind of be there when they want something, or when they, if you see something that is good or bad, or you need to talk about it, usually save that for later. But Jeff's and as well as Kim, they've been big influences on his life, because he's probably the most polite young man I've ever been around in my life. There's John, no collar.
Thank you, Eddie.
John, apologies for the link and not getting that to you. To you, that's my fault. But I appreciate you
No,
joining us here.
evidently. I'm sorry. I went back and looked and you sent it. I just didn't see it.
We're good. We're good. We're just getting started here, so you didn't miss a thing here. We just got the first question from Zach out of the way. Let's go over to Bob Pockers. Bob, you can see we got the trio here on the screen. So Bob, go ahead, ask your questions.
Yeah, for either, I guess for John, how do you think how will you all look at the time that Harrison Burton has been with your team now compared to 3 days ago?
I'm not gonna go too far with this, but I saw a different Harrison Burton that last 3 miles, 5 miles, whatever it was. I don't know if it was a if it's a confidence thing that maybe we've been missing because there are times when we're pretty good, and there are times when it's almost like he hits another gear, and we can be. That doesn't mean we have to be running up front. I'll give you another example. Last week at Michigan, he's racing around some guys, and we're getting past. We're getting past. The next one in line is Hussavar to make the pass on us, and it's like he he would have wrecked before he let Hussavar pass him. It was crazy, and I don't know if he knows that or if it's just like a subconscious thing that he's not aware of. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is I'm hoping that this is giving him some kind of a confidence boost because I saw a different Harrison those last 2 laps. It was a very aggressive, a very willing to risk it all the time
All right,
race
John.
that he ran those last few laps.
Well, and let me pop and maybe I'll let Eddie answer this one. Like, when you all look back on the 3 years you had with Harrison, if without the win, it may have been looked at as a frustrating time, and maybe it's still looked at as a frustrating time. But what does the win mean when you look back on what how you look back? What does win mean when you look back on the 3 years that you've spent with him?
Eddie, that's for you.
Oh, me?
Yep,
Oh,
that's for you.
sorry. I was
Okay.
texting John. His mic is messed up. Yeah, I mean, what was the question?
The question is I imagine that before Saturday night, you'd look back on your 3 years with Harrison and say, man, frustrating, and we just never were able to put it together. And now that you have a win, how do you think it could change how you look back on these 3 years?
You just remember what just happened. We just never could seem to really find the magic to make it all work. And you never know when things are going to start working. And it obviously started Saturday night. And like John said, when that restart happened, I felt like he was going to win the race. It's just so much, so much at stake in these races anymore. But he was willing to risk it all, and he did that. And to outrun or beat Kyle Busch on a green white checker is just that's hard to do. It's almost unimaginable to some point. But and I'd like to say that Kyle, I respect him a lot. He raced those last 2 laps like the 2-time champion that he is. I think he raced with respect. I think Harrison raced with respect, and the guys pushing both of them, they did as well. And it's kind of an old school finish right there.
Thank you, Bob. Let's go to Lee Spencer. Lee, how are you?
Hold on 1 second. Is this any better?
No, it's kind of in and out. It's like every little word, it kind of comes in good, but it sounds kind of hollow.
How about now?
There you go. Right there.
Sound like you were at a Grateful Dead show doing some helium, John, but
Or maybe I'm at Chick-fil-A.
Anyway,
I didn't know I was doing this. Sorry.
For Eddie and Lanning, you could chime in a little bit later, John, on this, but a guy calls in this morning and he breaks into tears on the network because he was so moved by the finish and to see the 21 win again at Daytona. And there were a lot of people, there were a lot of tears late Saturday night or Sunday night or or Saturday night. It was a Saturday going into Sunday. Just there were so many people that were still crying, that, just the emotion of being in Victory Lane. But when you move the fans, and when you've been moving the fans like that for 8 decades, what does it say about your legacy in the sport?
I don't know. I mean, I was, crying as well. Just about everybody in Victory Lane was that way. And just thinking back about it, it's still there. I mean, sometimes I even, there we go. Sometimes I even get to thinking about Trevor's win in 2011 and get kind of emotional. It's just, racing is something you just put everything you got in it, and everybody does. If you're a real racer, and probably the older you are, the more it means. But I'm just proud of all all the team that put it all together, and all the people that helped us get here, and all the fans. We're in Stewart today, and there's been a lot of people in and out of the museum, and they're the same way. They're just they know more about the finish than I do, which is really amazing now. And a lot of them are my age, and so they've watched it on TV. They didn't see it on the phone. They've watched every minute of it, and it's just really cool. Thank you,
Jon. You had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I tried to touch on this the other night, and I was looking at Lee, and I got a little bit choked up. But the thing that stood out for me the most was sitting in that same exact seat in that same media center in Daytona, and thinking back to where we were in 2016. We didn't want to be there. We didn't want to have to face the music and sit in front of everybody and really almost, it wasn't that we were lying, but when I said that, or when Dad said actually that we're going to be okay, everything's going to be all right, like, we didn't know that. Like, we were hoping, but we didn't know that. And it was a really, really, really difficult time. And so to have sat there then and went through that at the lowest of lows, and then to be able to go back and be at one of the highest of highs, it was just really a contrast for me. And I got tangled up when I was trying to express that, but I think I can do it now a little bit better job.
And Len?
Yeah, I think it was me that said we'll be okay, and we were. I said if we perform like we're supposed to, we'll be fine. And I think that year we did, and then the following year with Blaney, we did excellent. But we overcome all that. But go back to our fans. I mean, winning is hard, and it should be. And we don't win a lot, but I think when we do, then everybody, the built up emotions come out when we do win. I've had people say they were laying in the floor crying, or jumping up and down crying. And for me, I didn't cry, but I was so happy to see the smile on Harrison's face, and his mom and his dad. That was what was the best part for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. That was just as, because Harrison's mom, Kim, and his girlfriend usually are on the pit bike. Kim's always there. I would imagine that she has been to every race, go-kart, pedal car, or whatever it is. She has always been there. And just the happiness with those two and Jeff, that was a big deal, and I told Jeff, I said, winning, it fixes things. It just, things that seemed to be such a big deal, yesterday or this morning, when you win, it just fixes everything. Running well fixes a lot, but winning, it just makes a wet road dry.
And what about Unc? What was Unc's reaction, or have you guys seen him yet?
Unc, he's telling us everybody that's called him, from Roger Penske to Ray Evernham to Chip Ganassi, he's over the moon as well. I mean, like I said, we're in Virginia now, So he was very happy, and actually Uncle Delano and Aunt Crystal, the last three of the original group, were at our shop today, and we had a picture taken with a 100 win banner.
Awesome. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Let's go to Louis Frank. Hello, Louis.
There we go. Hey, John, you've been anticipating my questions, and I'm still suffering for Utter calling me out at Concord a couple of months ago. Obviously, you're hopeful for a win. It's been a while. I mean, what were you thinking, in the closing laps? Again, Kyle Busch is there. What were you thinking as you're watching Harrison perform the way you think he should perform?
I think the way that I look at these speedway races is I count the cars that are running, and I look at it from where can we be worst case, and that isn't a direct attack on Harrison. That's just how these races unfold. And so as that race progressed, I kept thinking, okay, there's 30 left, so the worst we can be is 30th. Then there's 20, then there's 15, then there's whatever it was on the lead lap, but then Harrison's on the front row. So on that final restart, I'm thinking, as long as he doesn't get just totally knocked out of the way, like we should come out of here with like something to not be ashamed of. It didn't dawn on me until I saw his car on the front stretch, like right before the start finish line, that he had a chance to win it. I mean, it's not something that you allow yourself to think about, because it's almost like you'll jinx it.
And to follow up, Eddie or Len, do you have anything to add on to what John said about watching the finish?
We were watching on TV in the lounge. We had went to the lounge because we could hear better the talk from pit road. And it was one of those things where you almost had to watch the TV, watching go by, and like, wait a minute, did we really do it? And once we did, it's like, then we're jumping up and down. It wasn't like you didn't think going down the backstretch, well, we're going to win this race. But there again, we've been so close so many times. That you got to get to the start finish line, and if you don't, just like David Pearson and Richard Petty in '76, well, Richard Petty's going to win. Well, wait a minute, he stalled. No, he didn't. And then Eddie was on the radio with Pearson, and he asked where Richard was at, and he said, "Well, he stalled," and he said, "Well, I'm coming." And so it wasn't over till it was over. And the same thing with this. It's not over till they cross that start finish line. So, you never know.
Well, thanks, guys. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Louis. Let's go to Logan Morris. Hello, Logan.
I just want to ask any of you, what does it mean to you, the fact that Leonard Wood is still here to celebrate this win? Obviously, you talked a little bit about his reaction, but what does it mean to all three of you that he's still here to enjoy the 100th win for your legendary organization?
I'll take it. Yeah, that's a really big deal to us. I don't know how many of you have been around Leonard lately, but he works every day at the museum, which our museum, of course, is our old race shop. So it's a full machine shop and all that. It's like a race shop. But he works every day. A lot of time he works on Saturdays, and he's got projects. He and Benny Belcher, which is another machinist that works there, has been with us since the mid '80s. They just work on projects. Right now, he's building a half-size, half-scale Boss 429, and it's made out of aluminum, like pieces of aluminum. It's nothing made on CNC machine. It's all hand done. But this morning was the first time I saw him since the race, and it was just like he was there. He knew as much about it as is as if he'd have been there. He's just got such an understanding of racing, and his mind is just as sharp. Or, in fact, his workmanship now is probably better than it was, when he was crew chief in the 70s, 80s. But we're really happy that, he's able to enjoy it too. He may get to come to Darlington. He's talking about coming to Darlington, so that'll be cool.
He turns 90 in about a month, and like I say, you wouldn't know it. As Eddie said, he is at the peak of his craftsmanship right now on making things, and it doesn't matter what we ask, what's broken that we hand to him. He hands it back fixed or exactly like we ask.
And then, so let's talk more about him, considering that he's going to be 90. What kind of conversations do you have with him when you say we're going to go to Josh Berry? Does he have any influence on that or anything like that?
He was aware of it. He's aware of everything that goes on, but he's an old crew chief, so crew chiefs they know just about everything, and they know how to understand things, and they see through things. They're able to see things that the rest of us don't sometimes. And so he was aware that we were going to probably make a change for 25, and Josh was one of them that he had recommended, and he'd never even met him. He just watched him race, and but he's watched a lot of great drivers and crew chief for a lot of great drivers through the years, and guys like him, they just know. But he's like over the moon happy for Harrison and Jeff and Kim. Just because now we've known that family since Jeff. In fact, I think Len may remember this, but we were testing in Loudon, New Hampshire one summer, and Jeff was up there with at that time it was a Busch car. And then about the next year, all of a sudden, Jeff Burton starts with Jack, and he starts winning races. So we go back a long ways.
Thanks so much, and congratulations on your 100th win.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Logan. Let's go to Matthias. Matthias, you got a couple questions. Go ahead.
Hello, my friend. My name is Matthias Viana. My questions are two. Why did Will Brothers Racing never have a two-car operation full-time in NASCAR Cup Series in history? And what are your expectations? What expectations do you have Josh Berry in 2025?
So, Eddie, let me just ask you, or John, it's always been pretty much a one-car operation. Just your thoughts on that philosophy.
Yeah. They raced two cars, a couple of times during, their history, but we never ran all the races, the full schedule, until Kyle Petty came to work for us in 85. So in the mid-'60s, one time they took three cars to Riverside, California. And one of them was Dan Gurney, who won the race in it. Marvin Panch, I think, finished second. And Curtis Turner was in the third car. And I think he was in the top six, I think. But it was always us, just a family team, So really, we didn't have enough people to do that, but we always had enough support and things from Ford Motor Company, during the 80s, Signal Petroleum was our sponsor, and then we had Pure later to assist with the Ford stuff in the 70s. And but it just never was something we really pursued. These guys, it's got four cars now, and Jack used to have five. I don't know how to keep up with it, but they told me one time, you just got one car and you multiply it by 4 or 5 or whatever it is, and you just do it that way. But single car stuff has always worked for us.
Eddie, my last question, could it be achieved in 2025, the two-car operation of Will Brothers?
Expectations for 2025, John. I mean, you're just going to stay with one car, but just what are your expectations?
I've got to be careful what I say about Josh and his relationship with Stuart Haas, because there's a employee sitting right across from me right now. So I'm going to be a little quiet about it. But I would hope that he at least performs as well as he is each week now. He's going to have there's not going to be the distraction that I think that there's probably taking place within that shop right now. And I don't know what level of influence that's having on their performance, but it's got to have some. So I would hope that he at least performs as well as he is each week next year for us. And that's really about all I could say. I mean, that's what I hope.
Thank you. Congrats for the 100 triumph in team.
I didn't get that, Matthias. Can you repeat that? I think we're good. All right. Does anyone else have any follow-ups, any last-second follow-ups or anything for John, Eddie, or Len? Lee, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask, do you see a point, because Harrison is so young, that, somewhere down the future, these two Virginia families might get back together at one point?
There you go.
Sound like you're at a grateful. Sorry.
Okay.
I told Harrison several weeks ago, never say never. We had Neil Bonnet twice, 2 different sessions back in the 80s. It was almost like 8 or 9 years apart. So never say never on this.
Yeah, this is the only business in the world where I think it's unpredictable. People that you never thought you'd be, would work for you or drive for you or whatever. I mean, look at Richard Childress and Kyle Busch. They had a fist fight, and now they're Kyle races for Richard, and you can be mad today and you're over it tomorrow. That's one thing in racing, that you get over being upset or whatever you want to be really quickly, because nobody cares. Everybody moves on, and racing kind of overshadows any emotional parts. You got it, because the race cars won't wait, and you have to go.
And there's no driver.
Doesn't have.
I was going to say, there's no driver that's driven for us before that doesn't come around to our hauler or whatever, come by to speak, no matter where we see them. There's nobody. I mean, all our relationships, once you're part of the family, you're part of the family.
I think Blaney spent more time with you guys the first year he was at Penske than he did over the 12 hauler. But and my final question is it different going through the experience with that first time winner? Do you think that was part of the emotion that we were all feeling, in addition to the 21 back in victory lane, just when you get a guy that first win? Because, his dad said it was like swimming with sharks for Harrison, and that his confidence had indeed been tested. Once you kind of get that monkey off your back, is there just kind of that release of joy?
I think so. I was thinking about it the other day, the first time winners that we've had. It goes all the way back. Of course, it was Trevor, it was Elliott Sadler, Dale Jarrett, Kyle Petty, Harrison now, Blaney. And you go back.
Tiny Lund's first win.
Tiny Lund. It was in 1963, won Daytona 500, first time out. Winning a first race with someone, a young man like that, that's just a double win. I mean, that's why it was so important. And when, I said winning kind of fixes everything. Whatever bad races you had or whatever, you forget all that stuff. Winning fixes everything.
And Harrison really is one of those guys that you just want him to do good so bad. Like he's just got that personality, that that respect, self-respect. He's just one of those people that you can't not like, and so for us, it's been double hard with making this change for next year because you just want him to do good so bad, and that applies to whatever ride or whatever car he ends up in next year. You still just want it so bad for him because you can see it in him and you can see it in his eyes, and he's just a good kid. So that's my take.
Yeah. You just want to hug him. I said that the other night. When he walks in the room, you want to walk over there and hug him. It's just the way it is.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Let's close it out with Louis Frank. Louis, you get the last question.
Yeah, John may be too young for this, but I remember my first couple of NASCAR racing hearing, "You're only good as your last win." So as you step into the garage at Darlington, what's the feeling? Eddie or Len?
I think first race last year we finished sixth. There was an accident near the end, and we were hoping to restart third, and it lined us up sixth. So I mean, you never know till they cross that start finish line at the end.
And the way I look at it, like, okay, was fortunate enough to win a race Saturday night, and you get to enjoy that until you get to Darlington. When they start unloading the cars, okay, that race is over. You're back like everybody else. Nobody, everybody's looking to win the next week, and you get to enjoy it that long, though.
And we actually had a Sunday extra there.
Yeah,
one more day.
Thanks again.